Hi, this is John with another episode of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, mysterious, and creepy in the Midwest. I'm so blessed to have so many great guests, and it continues. I have Sara from Paranormal in Pennsylvania. Welcome, Sara.
Thanks so much for having me. I am so excited.
Yes. And again, people, just to let you know, I listen to all my guest podcasts. Sara does and her team do an amazing job. Please check it out. I will put all the links and everything in this episode to Sara's podcast. And please check it out. Like I always like to tell our guests, we're like a little coven here. So we always like to support one another and make sure that we get the spookiness, right? It's October, Spooktober. So, Sara, tell me a little bit about yourself and what interests you in the paranormal.
So ever since I was little, I've had a weird fascination. I mean, to other people, weird. I guess speaking to someone like you don't think it's weird. But fascination with ghosts and stuff like that. I've always loved it. I was looking up like how to interact with ghosts when I was in elementary school, much to my parents' dismay. My mom always said I couldn't use a Ouija board. That was her number one rule. Sure. And I loved it. And then my husband is really interested in it. As I was telling you, he actually grew up in a haunted house. So he has a love for it. And one day we were like, you know what? We both also studied history to some degree in college. Mm-hmm. Why don't we look at the history of these places and the hauntings? And we got really interested in it. And so we thought, why not, do that? We can go to these places and tell people. It's really analogous to yours, actually, because you go through the history and then talk about the spooky. It's like the same formula.
Yes, absolutely. Because like Sara and all our other guests, the history is important, right? To understand why this would be haunted. Why would there be ghosts here? Like, for example, I covered Bachelor Grove Cemetery as well as Lincoln Park Zoo, which have a lot of crazy, like open graves, like bones, like Lincoln Park Zoo, for example. Go back and listen to episodes. Crazy to my spooky friends out there. There's upwards of 14,000 human bones, Sara, underneath that park.
Yeah, when you told me that, you didn't tell me that. When I heard that on the podcast, I was so shocked. And I think your description of the website is great. It's like, they say all these nice things, and it's like, you did forget. There's all these people buried here.
And the other thing, too, is like, let's say you and your husband are out for a nice nightly walk. There's a good chance you would step or trip over someone's femur bone or arm bone. I don't know about you, Sara.
Crazy.
That's freaky.
Yeah, that's really freaky.
Or better yet, I don't know if you have a dog. I have a dog. Your dog come back with a bone in its mouth, and it's somebody's, like I said, leg bone, whatever.
Yeah, I feel like your first reaction to stuff like that is always, oh my gosh, someone's been murdered. Like I'm living out an episode of CSI. Right. But there it's like, oh my gosh, this bone is hundreds of years old.
Yes. And that's just crazy to me. And that's part of the history. If you didn't know that, you would be like, what's going, like you said, it's CSI. Oh my God, there's a serial killer and he buried the bones in this area. I'm freaking out. I'm calling the police, right? And it's really, no, they've been there for hundreds of years. And people just kind of,
yeah, there's just also a zoo there now.
Yeah, there's a zoo over top. So little kids go over bones every day. Whatever. So tell me about your podcast and what, a little bit about it so my spooky friends can, take a listen.
Sure. So we are primarily focused in Pennsylvania. We have so much history here that we have no shortage of haunted locations. And what we do is we go to the location, we take the historical tour and the ghost tour if we can, so we can get multiple perspectives. And then we dig in even further. We try to talk to locals, etc. And we kind of synthesize all that information to talk about various locations. And twice a season, we do outside Pennsylvania because there's so many other cool, spooky locations to cover. So it's the history and the haunting. And then we talk about if we would go back. And specifically, a lot of them have like overnight things. And so we talk about whether we would stay overnight.
Yes, that is awesome. And again, I can't highly recommend Sarah's podcast enough. It is awesome. It is spooky. It's full of history. And remember, folks, Philadelphia had the Civil War in there. So people forget, right? They don't really think of Pennsylvania, the Civil War. Aren't you talking about like the South? No. Obviously, major battles were in your area.
Yeah, in Fort Mifflin, which we covered, and we unfortunately haven't had a chance to go on a ghost tour there yet, but it's been involved in every war in American history to some degree, which is just insanity to me that it's from, you know, Revolutionary all the way to it was used as bases during the World Wars.
It's insane. So my mom, she passed a number of years ago, but my mom loved Gettysburg and loved your area, Pennsylvania. She always used to go around. She liked looking at the Amish, you know. But my mom tells me a story, and I don't know if you know of this field or whatever. So my mom, she was a very independent woman. So she just went. She was a single mom who raised 2 kids. So she's like, yeah, been there, done that. You're not scaring me, right? So she'd go on her own, like into these spooky places. And so when she was walking in around Gettysburg and around, you know, some of the battlefields in Pennsylvania, she got to a field and she said it was quiet. And when I mean quiet, I mean no birds chirping, no wind blowing, no animals rustling, no nothing. And my mom said she went in there and she started to get like nauseous. And she felt really weird. And she said, okay, I got to go. So she researched that area because that's where my mom was. I got my love of history from my mom. She said that was one of the bloodiest battle areas in Gettysburg. Like it was hand-to-hand fighting. It was men versus men, man on man, beating the crap out of each other to, you know, both of them die or, you know, whatever, right? Whatever happens. It was terrible. The worst. And my mom goes, yeah, I guess that's why I felt that way. And that's part of the love of my paranormals from my mom, because my mom would share that with me and say, you know, hey, check that out and everything. So I did, you know, later in life. And just got so enthusiastic, kind of like yourself. You know, you just kind of read the history of, hey, I don't want to get a ghost in here, right?
Yeah.
It just hooks you. And I love that. So tell me about a favorite or spooky personal story you have there.
Oh, so one of the freakiest that we had is we toured Nemacolin Castle. It's the only castle in Pennsylvania. It's like an hour and a half south of Pittsburgh. And it's a beautiful home. I can't recommend it enough to history enthusiasts. The tour was like 2 hours long about this family. First, it was a trading post, and then each generation of the family built on until they had a literal castle. And it's amazing. They do Christmas tours, they do ghost tours, they do historical tours. And the woman had said she didn't want to tell us a ton of the ghost stories because she wanted us to come back for the ghost tours. And so we're in the nursery and, you know, I'm taking pictures throughout trying to see, one, if I catch anything, two, the objects are just cool. I like the history of it. And all of a sudden, my phone just stopped. My phone camera just stops working. My phone goes black. As a skeptic, I think, okay, you know, it's just turning off. And so I turn to my co-host and I say, Erica, can you get out your phone and take some pictures?
Yeah.
She taps her phone. It goes black. Then we're standing there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm catching my hair on something. Phone still won't turn on. We go into the next room. Immediately, both of our phones start working again. And as we're leaving, we ask the woman, what's the deal with the nursery? Like, is there bad signal in there or something? And she said, oh my gosh, the little kids in there play jokes on people. They always mess with people's phones. And she said one of the ghosts loves
Yeah.
to pull hair so much that some
Uh,
people take photos and their hair will be like this, standing
oh,
out straight.
oh,
I
that's
know.
amazing.
And it's like, it was so cool and authentic because we had absolutely no way of knowing that going in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And it was just us and this old woman in this house, and that was
mm-hmm.
completely it in the middle of nowhere. So it was pretty freaky and cool to just experience exactly, what the ghost tends to do.
See, that's amazing, and I like to have skeptics on here. I think we're both like, and all my guests have been this way. You don't get on YouTube and there's some spooky picture, and you're like, "Yep, that's real."
Right.
We're like, "Come on, it's some kid with his
Yeah.
iPhone, got a filter." But some of it is like, "Huh, that's really interesting." So, all right, so let's get to the spookiness. So. Sara, there's a hotel in Wisconsin has the name Motel Hell because it has burned down 3 times, and people claim there's an actual portal to hell on the premises. Not to mention, the hotel was once owned by Al Capone. Yes, that Al Capone during the Prohibition era. What do you think? Pretty interesting place, right?
Yeah, and actually, because a lot of my family's from Wisconsin, I initially grew up there,
Yeah.
so it's not that far from Appleton, and I have a lot of family in Appleton, so I actually have heard of this place before, but I've never had the chance to go.
Yes. So my sources before we get to the good old history of it is from Wisconsin Haunted Houses, Wisconsin Frights, as well as Fright Find, and Only in Your State. Again, I will put the links in there for people to look at it and do your own research. So let's get into the brief history of Hotel Hell. So it was built in 1900. The Maribel Caves Hotel is known as, like I said, Hotel Hell because there's some eerie occurrences here, which I'll get into a little bit later here. But check this out. I love this. If you and your husband, if I can't do this, you got to promise me you and your husband will try it. Or we got to figure out a hosting thing. At night, the whole place, the whole hotel is supposed to glow by the light of a full moon, a ghostly reminder of a 1920s fire that the burning of the building burned down 3 times. Now, it not only burned down 3 times, Sara, but 3 times on the exact same date.
The same date.
The
Oh my gosh.
same date. And to me,
So what is the date?
I was looking at it, and then it was in September, like 12th. It wasn't like 13th. It was like a regular date, so it wasn't like anything. I was thinking September 13th, Friday the 13th. No, it was just like September 12th, 19, whatever. Unfortunately, so there wasn't any. I tried to do like numerology too, like it was 666 now.
Right.
It's just a basic date. So, but the first fire. I should say it was rebuilt twice, but you'll find out maybe it shouldn't have been rebuilt here a little bit. But the first fire was in the 1920s, and the last was in 1930. So again, same dates, but it also burned down, like I said, a third time in the, I believe, the 80s, I believe. And now in the 1931, Sara, everybody died in their sleep. Everybody.
No one, that seems
survived.
weird that no one woke up and got out. Was there a reason for it?
Well, you got to remember, there are no smoke alarms. There's no sprinklers. There's no nothing. So smoke asphyxiation. So like if you're laying in bed and you're just dog tired, right? We've all been there, done that. And that smoke gets in there and you don't smell it for whatever reason. Yeah. It's going to suck out the oxygen, and there you go. So, do I believe that everybody died in their sleep? That is the fact that died in their sleep. So, let's talk about some interesting facts about Motel Hell. First of all, this is so weird. I didn't even know this. Maybe you know this, Sara, but it was used as a spa in the late 1800s for a movie star. I'm like, late 1800s for movie stars? And I was like, I think they mean like plays. Don't you think they mean like plays? Because
They
movies? Was
must.
movies in the 1800s?
No, yeah. No
Yeah.
way. Right?
Yeah. So they must mean like plays, right? They must mean like,
Right.
stars of plays or something. But anyway, so it was this great spot because it sits on these mineral springs, which I'm getting ahead of myself, but so it sits on these mineral springs and they have these great little spa areas. Think of like, if you know anything about the Roman baths or anything like that, if
Mhm.
you're really historical nut like I am, where, it's on a mineral spring and these people would go in there to be naturally, have all these great natural things that make your body feel great and relax. So yeah, but it said movie stars and I kind of went,
Yeah.
boy, am
Maybe
I
like
missing something?
socialites?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So rich, the socialites would go here and they would sit in the spa and relax. Then the hotel was owned by Al Capone during the Prohibition era. It served as a hideout for Al Capone, and he ran a moonshine business out of the hotel. And this is awesome. This is pure genius. And a water bottling company next door. So here's his
Oh my
illegal.
gosh.
Then here's his legal,
Yeah. You got to give it
Genius.
to the man. That is
Yeah,
genius.
it's genius. So he had this mineral water he's selling during the day, right? Hey, I bet you have mineral water. Oh, Al Capone, what a nice guy. Okay. And then at night, he's like, hey, let's get some moonshine.
Right. Same bottle. Be careful which one you pick up.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh, this,
Yeah.
So this thing is challenged. A lot of people don't think this is true, but if this is true, maybe I need to go there. Maybe we need to go there. Put a whole hosting thing to go. Underground passageways built beneath the hotel during the bootlegging days contained the lost treasures of Al Capone and John Dillinger. So, if you know anything about John Dillinger, he was a bad guy. He was a nasty dude. And those two guys together supposedly took all their ill-gotten gain and all their money and put it underneath this place. So people claim there's treasure. Now, right, you think somebody would have found it by now, but who knows? I don't know. I just thought that was interesting that Al
Yeah.
Capone and John Dillinger.
Yeah. And why not us to find the treasure?
Why not? Hey, it's good support for the podcast. So as you see, it's very Al Capone, John Dillinger, people dying in their sleep, burned down twice on the same day, or burned down 3 times on the same day, and so on and so forth. A portal to hell, which I always love that. Because it's always like we can't find heaven, but there's like portals to hell everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere, right? And isn't
Right.
there a theory that Al Capone made a deal with the devil to escape capture?
Yes.
Am I jumping ahead?
No. It is a true story that I'd love to do some Al Capone paranormal stuff, because also Al Capone was known to believe in witchcraft and known to believe in the paranormal. And a lot of people don't bring that up. And in fact, I would like to look up someday, I'll do an episode on this. So the St. Valentine's Day massacre, I know I'm getting off here on a side note, but anyway, the garage that all these men were, murdered, supposedly the bricks are cursed, and the hotel, not the hotel, but the garage is all cursed. So like people, when they were renovating this garage where this massacre happened on St. Valentine's Day, some people took the bricks, for novelty, right? Well, these bricks are so cursed that people who have them, people die in the family, they get in a car accident, they lose their job, they get divorced, like every terrible thing. And people don't know where the bricks are anymore. They just don't know. Like some guy just said, "Oh, get them out of my house," and
Right.
nobody knows where those bricks are. So
See, this is a common trend. When you visit a site of something terrible happening, just leave everything. Just don't take anything. Why risk it?
Why risk it? Exactly. So one thing that was really funny, one of the sites I researched, they said there also is a true history of the Maribel Caves Hotel. Seems to be much less interesting, but I'll read it anyway. Apparently, again, yes, it did open in 1900, and it was a hotel and therapeutic spa for travelers. So it typically was not for the elites and the socialites. And it became a tavern, which I was like, oh, that's interesting. But it has remained open in one form or another until the blaze destroyed, another fire destroyed it in the interior in 1985. But the building was eventually gutted in 2006, removing all the debris inside and leaving an only old stone wall standing. So it's much of an empty shell reduced to like piles and stuff. And then a really bad storm came through there in 2013, and now it's just a former shell of itself. I will tell people at this point, if you do go on this property, it is private property. So yes, you can get into trouble. But the person who owns it, I think there's a way to contact this person and ask them nicely, hey, can I go on it? But I would highly recommend some of my paranormal investigating friends out there, my spooky friends, don't go on it because I don't want you to get a ticket.
Yeah, we always say that too. We're like, we're not going to go anywhere. We shouldn't go.
Exactly. So again, as you see the true history, it doesn't talk about Al Capone. It doesn't talk about Dillinger. It doesn't talk about people dying in here. It's kind of, well, let's be honest, boring, but we don't like boring. We like fun, right?
Yeah, and that's what they want us to think. They want us to think that it was just a tavern and that Al Capone didn't own it. So, you know.
Yeah, we're on to you. So let's get to some of the spooky stuff, some of the paranormal experiences. So the first one, there is a little boy was playing on the roof. I always love this, Sarah, about 1800s and 1900s. Like parents were like, I got to play on the roof.
Yeah, right. Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was like, what?
What?
Yeah.
So he was playing on the roof of the bottling factory. Like I said, it's kind of next door to this place, and was killed when it caught on fire. Somebody stop burning things. So again, fire was relevant because they have sprinklers, smoke alarms. The fire department was like you and me and your husband. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like, there's no professionals. So it's like, oh, well, I better try. And then it's never going to happen. But his ghost can be seen in a second floor window. And people, I will put some stuff on my social media site. You can see this little boy like staring out the window, like he's like lost, or you know what I mean? You probably have that same thing where you bumped into when you've done your research, like a little boy or little girl looking out the window, and it's so sad, right? Because they're like thinking, "Hey, mom's gonna be home soon, and I'm not dead."
Yeah, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Where's mom and where's the other? You know, kind of a weird thing, right? They don't realize they're dead. So,
yeah.
The next one, and I love this. So visitors to Motel Hell will see blood on the walls and hear yelling from the basement and ringing of a bell. Now, you're probably thinking, Sarah, wait a minute, was anybody killed in the basement? Was there, why is somebody ringing a bell? Why is there blood on the walls? There was nothing in my research that I found other than people have gone down there, have seen it. And typically, as you know, through your research for your podcast, is the basement is usually the bad place to go for experiences as well as investigations. You got to be really strong-willed and just have to deal with what's going on there, right?
Right. And if Al Capone really did own it, which I like that theory, so I'm running with it, then who knows what he hid down there? There could be bodies down there for all we know.
Absolutely. And let me ask you a quick question, Sarah, just off the top of your head. I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but was there any like buildings that you've heard of this before where the blood is running down the walls and you hear screams. Maybe not in the basement, but maybe in other areas.
There's a bloody handprint that it's the Jim Thorpe jail. And there's a handprint on it. Some guy said, I'm innocent, and if I'm innocent, let my bloody handprint stay forever. And they've apparently plastered over it, painted over it, etc., and it still will drip blood, allegedly to this day. So, yeah, somewhat similar.
Yes, I love that. I've heard that before. That is an amazing story. So now this is always the case, right, Sarah? In every horror movie, in every spooky story, if you look in the old well, a portal to hell will open up and try to swallow you.
Listen, I saw The Ring. I think I was 7 or 8 years old when I saw The Ring. And it has ruined wells for me for the rest of my life. So I'd believe it. I would believe it.
So my spooky friends and Sarah, just to explain, the well is like a, how do I describe it? So it's not like a well in the sense like it has like, it's all bricked up and it has like a little roof on it and a little bucket. Mm-hmm. No, it's like this hole in the ground.
So very rudimentary.
So, right. Yeah. So it's like, la la la. When they say swallow you, I always laugh at it because they've tried boarding it up. They've tried cementing it up. They tried all these different things and it's not working because people, for whatever reason, dig it up or something. Something goes weird about it. So I'm like, why would they do that? So,
yeah, why?
So ghosts of people who died in the hotel are sometimes encountered underground in the nearby Maribel Caves. So the Maribel Caves, again, is the springs. Okay, so it's out on top of the spring. So I'm just like, yeah, I could see that. People being died there. Yeah. And skeletal remains of some of the victims can still be found on, and this is funny, on the 3rd floor and in the basement before the structure was gutted. So imagine that, right? You're just some regular worker and you're gutting this place, so people don't hurt themselves. Just finding skeletons. All these remains.
And what's interesting, again, I'm going to reiterate, I love the Midwest. I wore my Packers green today.
Yay!
But what do you guys have going on there that we don't hear? Because I've never heard of this, but Lincoln Park, this place, it's like, why are these remains just out?
I know. We're lazy, Sarah.
You guys are totally like, I don't want to inconvenience that skeleton. I'll leave it there. It's too Midwest nice.
Yeah. Right. It's like, if I move it, I'll make it worse. So maybe if I just leave it, I'll put a wood on. Yeah. And that is a lot in farms in the Midwest. So again, just a quick sidetrack. One of the things is a lot of farmers would bury their kids, the dead. So you'll hear a lot of stories where someone buys this old farmhouse to fix up to make a bed and breakfast or whatever. I've read a ton of these stories. And then they'll like go out in their yard. Oh my God. Taking up bones after bones. And also, remember, we weren't very nice to the Native American people and still not very nice to Native American people. So the whole Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin, is a huge Native American burial ground. We did a story on Mackinac Island, which is this gorgeous place. If you and your husband ever want to go on a vacation, kind of, just get out and just see a beautiful place, Mackinac Island is just gorgeous. However, the entire island is on bones, Native American burial sites. It's the worst.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a shame.
Right? Oh my God. So back to the story here. So years ago, let's make it worse, right? Years ago, one of the hotel guests went psycho and killed everybody. Let me repeat that. Everybody in the hotel during a mass murder frenzy, committing suicide afterwards. The spirits of those killed in the hotel have never left the building. So I tried to research this, Sarah. I could not find anything. And I found a couple of things where a couple of people just lost their minds and like, I don't know, like, how do I say, like, had like a seizure or something, or they like would attack people, but they didn't kill them. I did find some information of maybe Al Capone got really angry one day at some of his help, if you want to say that, and killed them, like we were just talking about. But I didn't see this, but this is kind of the universal theme, right? It is like, again, somebody got angry, somebody murdered somebody, whether it's everybody, I don't think so, but let's say one or two people. But yeah,
Right.
this adds to the legend, right?
Yeah, and if it is a portal to hell, I mean, who knows what energy is coming in and out of there. So
Yes.
very reasonable.
Yes. And then this is my favorite one. This is like, we should make a movie. Okay. The spiritual activity attracted a group of local Black witches who conjured and conducted secret rituals, because they're secret, right? They have to be secret, to curse the hotel. And in the process, they opened up the portal to hell through the old fountain or well in front of the hotel. This unleashed a horde of evil spirits that terrorized the town of Maribel. Fortunately, Sarah, a white witch, came to the rescue, sealing off the portal and confining the demons to the boundaries of the hotel and the surrounding property. So there you go. We're okay.
Great. I was going to say, it sounds like even before these witches got involved, it was already, pretty haunted. But now it's great. Now it's like, definitely don't go. You might catch on fire. Someone might murder you. And there's all these evil spirits.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, they're confined to that area. So let's not, let's not panic, everybody here. Which is funny because a couple of podcasts ago, episodes, I interviewed a real witch. She's from the Netherlands. She is a good witch. Don't worry about it, Sarah. But she talked about a lot of things like, like I'd ask her, is she in the basement covered with blood doing all these? And she's like, no. She's like, no, I don't do that. And I said, well, what do you do? And she's like, well, I have like these spell jars. So if I'm trying to help someone who's having let's say a bad time of it, she goes, I'll work on different spells to cheer them up, and I'll use different crystals. But also I worship Lilith, and I do some other. And I was like, see, to me, people get upset about when you say Satanism or you say witchcraft. Everybody freaks out. And really, she's just a nice person. Just this is what she believes. And this is what she does. And she was absolutely fascinating. So I was just, isn't that strange? Have you ever bumped up against that in your research about witches?
Yeah, I do. I think, witches and even the Wiccan religion gets such a bad rap. Like you're saying, everyone thinks, oh, it's evil and they're whatever, sacrificing things. But, we've had some really interesting, like personal experiences with it. And then also on the podcast, there's apparently Erie Cemetery. There's like a ring of witches where they do stuff there. But it's not bad per se. I mean, people say that they just put their dead there because that's where, they've written in Satan's book and that's where he's going to come claim them. And it's like, it gets a bad rap, but if they're not hurting anyone, that's fine. But even better if they're helping people. I'd love someone to have a spell jar to make me happier. That sounds great.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, this is super hilarious. I have to mention this. She's never heard of a Ouija board. They don't have them.
What?
No, they do not.
That's crazy. She has to like play with one now just to figure out. Like,
I was going to send her one and she said, cool, send me one. Because this is the other thing that blew her mind. I said, I can go into any toy store, most any toy store, a Walmart, Target, and buy a Ouija board. And she was like, what? She's like, no, I don't believe you. I'm like,
oh yeah,
you can. You can go right
You can
now
get
if
them
you
off
want.
Amazon.
You can get them off
Yeah.
Amazon. Yeah, and we were talking about Ouija boards. I said in America or in the States, we have Ouija boards and demon boards, and they're, a different one. And she was like, and we tell people that's not really a great idea. And she couldn't understand that. She goes, how do you summon in there? I kind of explained it to her, and she went, huh, that doesn't make any sense. She didn't get to wrap her mind around it because she does these intricate spells and everything. And she couldn't understand, like, you move a planchette and, you ask questions. She was like, huh.
Yeah, I mean, hers is probably more controlled.
Correct.
I feel like the reason Ouija boards are so dangerous is you don't know what you're going to get. With hers, she's much more practiced, but I'd be interested to know what she would think of using one.
Yeah. And she was like, I'm going to send her one. I told her I will send her one as a present for being on my show. And she was like, great. Because she was like totally confused. And she was like, that doesn't make any sense. Okay. And that's the difference, right? Between their culture, like they don't have trick-or-treating. So they don't do trick-or-treating in the Netherlands. They have more of like a Thanksgiving atmosphere. So they'll invite all their family over and then they'll worship their way. So she's like, no, I don't go out with my kids and get candy. She goes, no. So isn't that strange, right? Two different cultures. We believe in the paranormal and spirits, but they don't do Halloween or Ouija boards. And you know what I'm saying? It's just interesting too.
I've always thought our celebration of Halloween is kind of weird here. Like who, and I guess I should look up the origin of kids wearing costumes and getting candy, but it just seems strange and deviated from the original holiday.
Yes, I totally agree. But with that, I do like candy.
Right. And yeah, I love a costume, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah. So one of the things is Chad Lewis, he's a paranormal investigator. He was at Hotel Hell, and he says it's one of his favorite landmarks because he says many haunted tales surround the building, obviously, including legends about visiting at night, like I've seen the ghostly image of a child, visible on the second floor, also the blood on the walls, screaming, the way the hotel looks like it's on fire in the full moonlight. And he said that he's had several scary stories and witnesses who walked through the now abandoned building. But again, it's a private building, so please get permission. Anybody get into trouble? And he says, this is his quote, you have all the weirdness trapped within the history and mystery combined to give it a really creepy atmosphere. I had someone contact me claiming they were walking through the building and they swore they heard somebody in front of them. And then they heard a voice calling them. And they followed the voice and they actually saw the shadow of this person or whatever it was walk into a room. And when they went into the room, nothing was there. And other paranormal activity reported, including cold hands applying pressure on your back, and on the third floor, feelings of being threatened in the basement. And apparently, if you shine a flashlight at the second floor window where the kid is, something or someone will shine a light back at you.
That's interesting. That reminds me of like the 90s of like, you like flick the flashlight before cell phones to get your friend's attention. Yeah. But from the 1800s, they definitely wouldn't have had that.
Yeah, may have a lantern. I don't know. Here's the other thing too. Stories also say if you went out to the location, Sarah, and if you brought a book with you, it would burst into flames. So as soon as you go in there and open the book, I gotta try that.
Now I'm like, I gotta do it. Yeah, like that's easy.
Yeah. So, what I love about this is just like every hotel's like in Pennsylvania and Midwest, there's so many great stories and so many different things that happen that really make it exciting. So before we get to a personal experience, someone who's at Motel Hell, Um, again, is there any hotel? What would you think is the most haunted or spookiest hotel you have in your area, or in general area?
Ooh. So there is, it's in Pennsylvania, not close to me, but there's a hotel in the Poconos
Hmm.
that's apparently haunted and they do ghost tours and stuff. There's a woman that was murdered in one of the rooms early
Okay.
on. And so she haunts the first floor and she's known to trick people, like lock them in the bathroom. And we had some debate over, is she trying to protect people or is she helping the killer?
Sure.
Yeah, and even the golf course there is haunted, actually. There's a couple who used to like to play golf, and rumor has it that you can still see them playing golf. So it's been around since like the
Nice.
20s, and anything that old is bound to have a history. It's called Skytop or Shawnee Inn. And
Hmm.
it also, there was Native Americans there incorrectly identified as Shawnee. They were Lenape. And so
Hmm.
that ties in as well. As you were saying, the mistreatment, some of those ghosts are pretty restless. So it's cool to me because it's a campus of a
Yeah.
hotel, really. It's a
Okay.
resort. And every area you go to has its own haunting, which I think is
Hmm.
cool.
Hmm. So again, I have another question to ask you again before we get the personal experience. Sarah, tell me your bucket list of paranormal places you want to investigate. Give me like a top 3.
Ooh, so
Be
I went to
anywhere.
the Lizzie Borden house
Oh,
when I was
nice.
little, and I
Okay.
really want to go back because there's no
Okay.
way I appreciated it enough.
No, of course.
Um, I was more into the true crime when we went and less into the paranormal. So I appreciated the murder, the unsolved murder, but it's
Mhm.
super haunted. That's up there. There's also in Pennsylvania a place called the Seven Gates of Hell.
Mhm.
And
Oh, right.
maybe if I am brave enough, I'll go to that. But it does sound a little nerve wracking. And then I actually want to go back to the Pabst Mansion. I
Yes.
lived near Milwaukee when I was little. So we used to go historically to see it. But I've heard that it's really haunted as well. So it's
Yeah.
kind of revisiting these places that I've been before in childhood
Mhm.
and looking at it through a different lens where I can
Mhm.
appreciate the history still, but looking at it paranormal as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. Really quickly, mine is Bobby Mackey's, just because I hear the craziest stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with that story at all. They like Portal to Hell. It's so haunted. It's so full of demons. Like it's ridiculous. I mean, it's insane. Like supposedly they cut some woman's head off and threw it down the well because she was pregnant, and the guy didn't want to marry her. So he,
Right.
oh, what else? Like, what would you do, Sarah? Of
Yeah.
course, cut his head off, cut her head off, and
Yeah.
throw it in. What? Right?
Yeah.
Of course. And then also I want to go to the Vanderbilt Mansion. So that's this
Mm.
huge mansion in, I believe it's South Carolina. I did a lot of traveling around there. Um, and it has like secret doors, secret entrances. It's just,
Oh,
if you
that's
Google
cool.
it, you'll be like, oh my God, it's like out of a movie. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's huge. It takes like an entire day to do the tour. So you get out there at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock, and you're done about 5. That's how big it is. And you got
Wow.
to take a lunch, or people are like
Yeah.
passing out because that's how big it is. But it's just huge, and I want to spend the night there. And then also, oh, there's so many things here in Wisconsin that I want to try. But one of the things is I want to go. So I don't know if you're familiar with the serial killer Ed Gein
Yeah.
at all. Okay, so and Plainfield's about an hour away from me, about 2 hours away from me, and where his house was mysteriously burned down. Some guy was gonna turn his house into a museum, and so people could
Yeah.
go into his actual house. And then it burned down mysteriously. But in that area, people are like, yeah, you go in that area and it just freaks you out, absolutely freaks you out. So to
That's
me, it's just,
crazy.
yeah, those areas I want to, and then of course more. I would love to go to Europe, spend a night in a haunted castle, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Wisconsin has a weird ratio of serial killers, actually,
We
right?
do.
Because Dahmer, Geen. Yeah.
By the way, if you ever do a serial killer podcast with Geen and Dahmer, I have two great personal stories to share with you. Not from me, but two of my friends. You won't sleep at night when I tell. Let's just put it that way. How would that hurt you?
They're both crazy stories. And we actually got a chance. We went to a haunted museum in Vegas and they have some of Geen's stuff there.
Yeah.
And just to be in the room of it, you just feel off. Like,
Right.
So much negativity with all of it.
And the thing is, really quickly, he used to babysit people's kids.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Can
like
you
John
believe
Wayne
that?
Gacy. He was a clown. Like,
Oh. So now we're scared. So personal experiences at Motel Hell. This is a pretty good one. It's always hard to find some really good personal experiences. I think this was pretty good. So this person says they visited the Maribel Caves in 2000, so not too long ago, and they had 6 people with them. And then they said when they got to the first cave, they said they could see our truck in the parking lot through leaves. And I walked 3 steps inside the cave and lost hours. So this is so weird. She says I'm guessing it's a young girl. Said she walked inside the cave. She was looking, okay, where's this? And then she just she said when she woke up in this at the same, this is kind of worded weird, so apologize. We all woke up in the same time at darkness with light rain and hearing the river to the right of us. We all started yelling, WTF happened. As one of the guys ran to the top and turned, and this is like they ran out and they turned on the headlights. They could see, where they head to the woods where they couldn't see the trail anymore. So I'm guessing they're going through the woods. They can't see where the trail is anymore. They lost time. They said they felt like something was behind them, a presence, and they couldn't see anything. And then a couple of times people got hurt. And again, I'm paraphrasing right here. People like tripped, you got hurt, and they couldn't account for them. And they said that they lost like all these hours after the cave, and they were just wandering around there, kind of like the Blair Witch Project, which I'm kind of getting the feel of here. And then they all eventually got out of the woods, and it was same time of day they walked in. It was a beautiful summer day, August day, and then just they didn't know what happened. Like as soon as they said they went into the cave, all these weird things started to happen. I lost track of time. People started like screaming and yelling, trying to get out. They couldn't find where the entrance was. Everything got dark. And they said that, there's been like all these different things, ghost sighting, creature sighting, feeling of these weird presence. And they said they would never go back there again. So
that's crazy. Imagine how disorienting. And then to have it be like a fever dream that 6 people had at once when you walk out and it's the same time. That must have been a crazy trip to take.
Yeah. And I've heard this before. People have said they've gone in a certain area, they've walked around, and then they're like, they look out and it's dark, and they're like, oh man, a storm came in or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they look at their watches and it's like, wait a minute, I think it's night because their watches have changed or something. You know what I mean? It's just this weird experiences that people have going through there and stuff. So I was just like, yeah, a lot of people think Maribel Caves and that surrounding area is built on some limestone and water. I don't know if you know this, but those are conductive to spirits in the paranormal. So a lot of times where you will hear maybe places where you are, if there's running water, like a stream or something going through there, as well as limestone. Yeah, that goes with the paranormal.
Yeah, and it sounds like even if it's not, the portal to hell in the well, it definitely sounds like a gray area between something. So maybe it's like you go into these caves and like you're saying, all the spirits, the limestone, etc. It's almost like a different space between the beyond and where we are.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would make it really hard to find Al Capone and John Dillinger treasure if you're kind of like,
yes, our plan is foiled.
damn it. Well, we'll have to have ropes to each other, right? We'll have to.
Yeah. Have someone at the mouth of the cave
Yeah,
keeping us on track.
Okay, pull a rope. Oh my God, the rope is. Boy, that sounds like a great horror movie. I'm writing that thing down.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I always ask this of my guests on certain topics. What do you think, Sarah? Do you believe this place is haunted, or what do you think about this place, the Marabou Caves?
Yeah, I think so. So what I like to look at things skeptically. We actually just met with a paranormal investigator. His name's Cody. He's the sharp side of the paranormal. And we talked a lot about skepticism.
Sure.
Because for people like us that are, in this realm, I like that you called it a coven, in this coven, we have to kind of edit ourselves and question ourselves, or else how is anyone ever going to believe us, if we're supporting negative things that aren't true. So I always try to be very skeptical, but I think with a place like this where it's burned down on the same date 3 times, I'm not a mathematician, but the odds of that, come on, there's no way. And all of the experiences people have had, I think it must be haunted.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what I think too. I think there's just too much, I don't know, history. And sometimes history, it doesn't have to be negative, right? A lot of people think, oh, people were murdered or people whatever. Sometimes it's just those people lived there for so long in that house or lived in that area for so long that their energy was I was told by one of my guests, that energy doesn't really disappear. It kind of soaks into the surroundings, per se, like a sponge. So like if you live in your house for 50, 60 years, there's a good chance you're probably going to haunt it because your energy's there, right? And it's absorbed into the walls and the whole entire house to make it yours, right? And then somebody moves in there and starts renovating the place, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing, right? Yeah, that's just awesome. So let me ask you, Sarah, what do you got coming up here on your podcast? Since we have a little time here, why don't you talk a little bit about your podcast and see what cool things and spooky things you have?
Sure. So we are kicking off season 3 at the end of this month, which is super exciting. It's hard to believe that we're already there. And we're actually, every season, we try to get something new. So we opened, in the beginning of season 2, we did aliens. It was before all of the government discussion of it, but we try to keep bringing different things in. And so goblins is our season 3 opener. There are goblins in Pennsylvania, which is strange. Then we're taking a team trip down to Savannah. We'll have you on that episode to talk about your personal experience, which is going to be super exciting. So lots of great stuff. We have some investigations scheduled for December. So lots of things coming up. Definitely uncovering history as well as we go.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I could talk to you for hours, Sarah. This has been a blast. I've had a ton of fun.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to guesting on your show. So how we end our show is 2 ways. One, we say hi to your ghost. Hello, ghost. Because we want to be nice, right? Yeah. And then we also say, stay spooky. All right, Sarah.
Okay.
I'll talk to you later.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was an absolute pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.